And since we haven't spoken with you, John, since episode 2, I have been curious about your reactions to the season as we march on to the finale. Ricky Flix and I have been going through a roller coaster of emotions. Ricky Flix has maintained relative negativity in terms of reaction to the season thus far. I think we both liked episode 5, the action that stemmed from it. I liked episode 6, even when you subtract all that lightsaber action. Ricky Flix wasn't as much of a fan. We've had Ricky Flix criticizing the structure of the show, the idea of going back and you have another throwback scene or flashback sequence on Brendock from the Jedi perspective. I said I understood. Ricky Flix said this is bullshit and could have been done in other ways. I want to know your thoughts on the season since episode 2. Has it fulfilled your expectations?
So after episodes 3 and 4, Ricky had asked me to hop on the pod for another episode, and I told him that it was not worth the airtime on the Drive-In podcast. It redeemed itself with episode 5. That was, I thought, a really good episode of Star Wars television, had incredible action. And then 6 and 7 personally didn't do it for me. And then I know we're going to get to the finale, but sneak peek, I thought it was absolutely terrible. So as a whole, I thought this show sucked.
Oh my God. I thought this was going to be an Ahsoka 2.0, like you guys ganging up on me about this might be a 2-on-1 against Doc.
Hey, I haven't given my thoughts yet, but I am prepared to argue that this was not the worst thing I've ever seen in my life, which I think I'm the only one on the internet that says it's not the worst thing of all time. And Johnny Sims, I am shocked by that reaction, right? Just based on your thoughts on Ahsoka. You know, we are going to rank like our favorite Star Wars projects, TV show wise on Disney Plus. I don't think it's that hard of an assignment, but we're still going to do it at the end. So the season did suck. I agree with Ricky. And the more I thought about that penultimate episode with the throwback, it honestly could have been resolved if you went back to episode 3 and you just extended it for like another 10, 15 minutes and you showed the Jedi perspective. You did not have to spend a 45-minute episode back in Brendock and you kill all the momentum that you gained with Kymir and Manny Jacinto's character, because for me, he's the highlight of the show. But I'm about to give you 3 things that I liked about the finale, okay? I'm arguing on behalf of, hey, this might be tolerable, okay? 1, lightsaber sequence between Soul and Kymir was excellent. Right? When it comes to the actual choreography, the close quarters, the lightsabers hitting the walls and the ceilings alongside of them, the dialogue I thought was pretty effective, although brief, but that's what dialogue is in a lightsaber battle. And the slow motion, the lightsaber followed by the detached dagger lightsaber, I thought that was cool. Right? Give me that at least. Number 2, what I thought was good about this episode. I thought Osha's turn to the dark side was done excellently well, where it's the Kyber crystal turning to the red color, right? You have her in the iconic, like you think of Luke Skywalker and him being tempted by the dark side, episode 6, him in dark garb. You have that here, although obvious, it's an iconic Star Wars trope. And then I think it was excellent when they had her predicting at the beginning of this episode, she sees her sister murdering Soul without a weapon. It ends up being her. I thought that was good. I think that was very good. 3rd thing that I liked about this, and the only other thing that I liked about this finale, I liked the dialogue with the Senator and Master Venestra, and the Senator calling out the Jedi, calling them a delusional cult who is not checked by any source of power, and that he sees as almost like a ticking time bomb. Those 3 things I loved. But the worst thing about this, and why overall this season is a failure, this show thought it was good enough for in the finale to tease season 2. To say we have, spoilers, Master Yoda. We have Darth Plagueis. Guess what? Can we care about the here and now? Can we not look ahead? We know the history of Disney Plus Star Wars shows. How can, in your right mind, when you have this different type of Star Wars show, can you look to a season 2? It has to be one incomplete, and this was not one incomplete. It was a show that had potential that fell flat. Johnny Sims, any thoughts aside from this is utter trash? What is your other reactions?
Yeah, so I can go through your points here. I'll give you the Soul and Chimera fight. I thought was really good, but the slow motion was so
slow.
We're done. 6 different bits going slow motion throughout the fights. But I agree, when they were fighting on the bridge and the sabers were hitting the ceiling and bouncing off the walls, I thought that was really, really well done. OSHA's turn to the dark side. My thing with the bleeding crystal is, in 2005, we witnessed a man chop down children with his lightsaber, choke his wife to death, near death, eventually did kill her, and then his best friend, and his saber didn't turn red. But now this person who was completely out of touch with the Force, couldn't even grab a water bottle 2 days ago with the Force, now is Force choking a Jedi master to death, and then the saber bleeds and turns red. It just makes no sense when you look at it in the context of what we have seen in Star Wars. It's like they didn't care about what came before this show.
That was the stretch. That number 2, where I talked about her turning to the dark side, because you know what it reminded me of, boys? And one of the things that's heavily criticized about the sequel trilogy, it was Rey all of a sudden being able to wield the Force at the end of The Force Awakens. That's what it kind of reminded me of. But it just gave me some type of finality, like, to this show, full circle moment with May and OSHA basically swapping places by the end of this season. And that's why I think in a penultimate episode, if we continue to build OSHA and her relationship to Manny Jacinto's character, the Stranger, I think we're in a better place in the finale. But guess what? We went back to Brendock for an entire episode, and who knows how long, right, she's actually been on this planet. Actually, we do know it's been literally hours or a day, maybe, that she's been on this planet with the Stranger. I give it to you. It's a short amount of time. That's the biggest flaw, right? But you got to admit, the bleeding crystal was pretty fucking cool. Come on.
It was cool visually, but as a plot device and as a Star Wars fan, I wasn't a fan. I just wasn't a fan.
It's crazy how they did that. And I haven't seen a single negative thing online about it. But I'm so glad Johnny Sims is on my side with this. I can't. Plot device is the perfect terminology. They did so many egregious things like that to try to hook these Star Wars fans in, and it's all fan service. That literally was like, oh, Disney buying Lucasfilm has all been fan service, and that was a clear distinction of them trying to freaking use a plot device to get you going. To use the Yoda cameo at the end, be like, get hyped for season 2. Oh, we could go into Darth Plagueis. Oh, we could do this. You know what? I just want something that I'll like. Look at Andor. Andor did not do well the first couple weeks when it was on, right? Or even at the entire season of views on Disney Plus, right? But then it absolutely exploded after it was done, because guess what? It was good. Word of mouth. And a quality show actually gets more views in its entirety versus a show that just uses plot devices like that. It's crazy. It's short-term thinking. It's short-term, and I hate it. This is what Disney's doing. And Kathleen Kennedy, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. She needs to go. She needs to go.
Explosive start to the episode, boys. I like the combativeness to start. I'm not saying this was a good show. And Ricky Flix, like the Yoda and what we assume to be is Darth Plagueis. We don't know for sure if it's Darth Plagueis, mainly because we've never seen him in live action. But this tells me, like, them bringing those characters in the finale. We don't really have too strong of a connection to anybody in this show. The one person that we had a strong connection to was actually Soul. And one part I hate about this episode is that I was watching this and I'm seeing Soul confessing indirectly to OSHA that he killed her mother on Brendock 16 years ago. And I thought Soul is someone through the first 5 episodes we grew with. I think of the clip that Johnny Sims, he was on the podcast. I said, if we find out that Soul is the traitor, it will kill me. It will kill me.
The Jedi did something here and deceived the both of them. And I think Soul may have been, as much as I love him and as great as he has been, I think he may have been the main guy. because he's said multiple times, I watched May die with my own eyes, and I just don't believe him. I really think he played a big role in whatever this business is the Jedi were up to.
You're killing me, Sims. You're killing me. If I have to see Soul as like the traitor in all of this, it's gonna break me because I thought he was by far the best character in the show. Thus see Soul go out like such a bitch, and to see him look so weak. I don't know what the intention of the show was, but after I saw this episode and I see Soul being the victim of potentially the first ever force choke in history, I just thought this guy is a loser. And I kept thinking, Lee Jung-jae learned English for this. He learned the hardest language on planet Earth to go out like an absolute bitch in the last 2 episodes. I feel awful for this guy. He deserves better. This character fell off a cliff. Sorry.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to defend the Acolyte here. All right? Shocker, I know. I didn't love it, but I understood the Soul arc. And I think he let Osha do the force choke and kill him. So like Johnny Sims, I heard you say like and I agree with you. It's like, Jedi Master who just beat a Sith Lord 1v1. Like it's not Lord. I don't know what to call him. Sith apprentice. I don't know. Kymer's sick, but like
he calls himself a Sith. He did in episode 5.
Right. Okay. So we'll say Sith. He beats it 1-on-1 in a sick action sequence, and Lee Jung-jae Soul looked awesome, right? And then you're like, oh, he got force choked out by Osha. No, I think he was accepting guilt and accepting death. That's how I was reading it. I was reading like, oh, he could like get out of this if he wanted to, because Osha literally 2 hours ago didn't have the force with her really, and now it just has it like again. Like no way, he just beat a Sith. Like no way that would just happen. I think he just let it happen. That's my personal opinion on it, but like I'm not saying that was clear. That was just my view on it.
Sims, your thoughts?
Doc, I believe you said you don't know what how you're supposed to feel about Soul. I don't think the writers knew how they were supposed to make you feel about Soul.
That was my
like nothing. It's just the way everything was structured and the writing of the characters, the decisions that people made. The motives are not clear at any point. They changed throughout the show. It was just a mess. It was a mess.
Even when he kills their mom, it wasn't even clear that it was a murder or self-defense. You know, and they couldn't make a decision on either side.
Yeah.
I think what they should have done. I think ultimately, by like the ending of the episode, the senator questioning Master Vernestra at the end about the Jedi and their actions, I feel like the showrunners wanted you to recognize that Soul made a mistake, and he knows he made a mistake, and he was trying like painstakingly to fix that mistake, and he was doing whatever he can to fix that mistake. I feel like they want you to recognize that Soul is not a good guy at the end of this story. But in the 5 episodes, in the first 5 episodes, they made you feel like he was the hero in all of it. But there is some type of ambiguity, or like Johnny Sims said, and I said previously, you just don't know what you're supposed to think about this guy. And it felt like it didn't go one way or the other. And that's why I kind of like used the harsh language with him. Very harsh language. Any other thoughts, guys, on Soul here? Because I mean, he is someone, we talked about it. We were like Qui-Gon Jinn vibes with this guy, and Lee Jung-jae, the effort he puts in, and then him to go out like this. I think, do you guys agree that they were kind of trying to show us the Jedi are uncontrollable, or the Jedi are not pure?
Yeah, I mean, again, I still think it's just not clear, because are we supposed to feel like Soul really did do something terrible and he got what was coming to him? Or are we supposed to feel that he really did what he believed was the right thing, and that he really was trying to save the daughters from whatever the mom was trying to do? And it's just, the writing was just so poor that it's not clear. It's really not clear.
And I'll just chime in here too with, I agree with you, Doc. You said it earlier about the senator scene and how the unchecked power and like the Jedi just could do whatever they want. I like that scene. Problem is, it came in the last episode.
Yeah.
And it's just like, we could have been again, like I said with the flashbacks, splicing it in throughout the season. Now, I'm not saying do an Ahsoka and just have a Mary Elizabeth Winstead every freaking 10 minutes do a senator scene. And that's not what I'm saying. But if you want to tackle that side of the Jedi, then let's spend more time with Vernestra and spend more time with the senator and build up that relationship or something where the show's more around that. But that's also a big problem with the structure of the show. It was tackling way too many things. Soul's not even our protagonist, and that's like we haven't even talked about May and Osha and their relationship, and they're the protagonists of the show. Like the structure of this is way off. In the writers' room, again, the writers' room. I'm not gonna get. I already blasted them enough, but holy crap, I just think there's just too like there's two reasons. One, they definitely thought they were cooking. Like they thought like, oh my God. And just like we were talking about the ending in this, they thought like, oh my God, like we totally earned this. And then two, it's like, all right, you have so many storylines. It's like they all separately worked on a storyline and it didn't blend together well. And I just think those two issues really have been the focus or have been the biggest problem with Lucasfilm. And it feels like every single project that they do, except Andor, which had one writer.
Yes, Ricky, I'm in 100% agreement with you. This show got too big for its britches. Like it's almost like they were predicting success before it actually came to them, and I think that's partially why this finale kind of looks foolish because you have Yoda showing up as if it's Luke Skywalker in season 2 of The Mandalorian. You know, it's like Death Star at the end of the season 1 of Andor. You know, they're teasing these things, you know, to try and hype up your excitement, but you got to know like the history of Star Wars shows, like nothing's a guarantee. Nothing's a guarantee. You got to make one complete vision actually come to fruition. Osha and May, Ricky Flix, you mentioned we have to talk about our protagonists here. I thought if we're talking about Osha becoming the acolyte, like we know at the end, she is the acolyte. And that I feel like she was the only complete arc here. I felt terrible for May because they do like a swap here. And like Osha is now the acolyte for Chimere, and May is now with the Jedi with a brain wiped and her brain's mush, and she only remembers what she did what she did when she was 8 years old. I feel like Osha is somewhat fulfilled in terms of her arc this season. May feels like a pile of absolute pudding. I feel like she went nowhere this season, and I don't really care where she goes in the future. I feel like if she ran away from the Jedi and we let her go, maybe if this show is actually successful, we see her down the line in season 3. But I thought they didn't handle May properly, and that kind of all like the show's resources went to Osha. What do you guys think about that? What do you think, Sims?
Yeah, I agree. I think May was done seriously dirty. Like, the ending felt so rushed. Like it was the classic, like they got to, oh, we have 3 minutes left in this episode. Let's just rush and make nonsense up so that it somewhat makes sense. Like, why would they have to leave her there and wipe her memory? Just have her take one of the other ships and have her just go to some other part of the galaxy. Like it didn't make any sense. And why would she agree to that? Like True. Her and her sister were separated for 15 years. Didn't know either of them were still alive until. And now, hey, I volunteer to wipe my memory and you take my place and become a Sith. It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Speaking of the writer's room, very convenient. They could just throw, I can wipe her memory. Like, very convenient.
Yeah.
Lazy writing.
Has that happened, though? Like, Johnny Sims, you're a Star Wars guy and you're a Lucasfilm correspondent. Like, people wipe memories before.
Like I haven't seen like that, like wiping specifically 15 years out of someone's memory. Like you can, use a Jedi mind trick and make them forget where they are at the moment, but wiping 15 years of memory with a wave of a hand, I don't think we've seen that. Just
defend the show a little bit. It is a 2-on-1.
But like also like they are the dark side. They did like Anakin killed younglings. Osha just killed Soul. Like they could have killed May. Like if we're being real.
What do you think about the death scene, by the way? To have Osha using the Force choke. I thought that was one of the better moments of the episode because they kept on emphasizing the last 2 to 3 episodes. These two are not twins. They are one. Osha having the vision of May not using a lightsaber to kill Soul, but in actuality, it was her. I thought that was the one thing that was actually well written, right? The Force choke. It was just a Force choke, and I think like the dialogue between Chimere and Soul in their one-on-one battle. Something I liked about it. I think you have Soul saying, "I will do what I must. If I have to destroy you, I will." And then Chimere saying like, "Well, what if she gets to you first?" And he's not saying Osha or May, and then ends up being Osha. I thought that was decent, at least, boys. Give me that.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I think the Osha, I do like the Osha story arc a little bit. Like, clearly in episode 5, when May switches outfits, cuts her hair to look like Osha, that's clear, like going dark to light and then light to dark, literally from the clothes that they're wearing. You could see that from the start of it. And then obviously Osha on that planet with Chimere. Love story that never was fully developed, but whatever. And then, which again, I'm fine with if you develop it, but whatever. But then May is still evil on that ship until like the very end, when she's like, he needs to be brought in and like held accountable, as in related to Soul. She literally is evil the entire time. So that goes back to like the Osha versus May storylines or arcs, where like Osha's is complete and May's is like, I don't know, rushed at the end, or I don't even know how to say it, except it was poorly written because I didn't believe it. I again, like, I agree with you, Doc. I did like that, but then we also don't know, like, we still don't know how they were created. Like, they are one. Like, it's crazy. And then obviously you show Dark Plagueis, and it's like, oh, so you're telling me Dark Plagueis thought of this idea for Anakin, like, because of these two? Like, I don't know. Like, you're throwing so much at me right now, and I hate it all, really.
With Darth Plagueis showing up here, what we presume to be Darth Plagueis, because we don't know for sure, because we've never seen him in live action. Maybe he looks like that in the comic books. I've never read the comic books.
Legends, right, Sims?
Yeah, so that what we saw was a Noon, which is the race that Darth Plagueis is. So it definitely, I'd say we can pretty certainly say that it was supposed to be Darth Plagueis.
So we can assume that's Darth Plagueis, and I think it's huge that they never explained how the two were born. You know, they just said it's an unnatural use of the Force. These witches that made it happen, the witches die, so we can't ask the witches. And we talk about the virgins, like hinted at in the penultimate episode. But this is obviously, when you show Darth Plagueis, you think of, okay, like you think of the story in episode 3, like bringing people back to life using the Force, using the dark side. And then you think about the birth of Anakin, you're like, oh my God, never had a father. Do you think this story, like, along with showing how unstable the Jedi are, or how unmonitored the Jedi are, they're also trying to show you and make that bridge between this point, 100 years before the Phantom Menace, to like the birth of Anakin Skywalker? Do you think that's one of the purposes of the show, Johnny Sims?
Unfortunately, like, I think you're right. Like, I think that, so we know Anakin was basically willed into existence by the Force to bring balance to the Force because of the dark side creating life and meddling in that business. And we know that these witches practice dark side magic and did life. I don't know how you explain the gap of him being born 100 years later. Maybe Darth Plagueis learns how to like use the visions to create life in future seasons that we hopefully won't be getting. But I'm not 100% sure, but I think he might be right.
I do want to say, we just had A Quiet Place Day 1, and this is like, I know it's a wide connection here, but that felt like a very self-contained story. That's what they should have done with Star Wars. That's what they should have done with a prequel. You should not be trying to connect the an event that transpired 100 years before the Phantom Menace to the prequel trilogy that we know. You should not be stretching that far. We want less connectivity to the Skywalker saga. And what is the likelihood, with the volatility of Star Wars fans, that it's going to be well received if you try and make that connection? Okay, why don't we just start smaller? And we are going to talk about like the future of Star Wars shows and movies. I think it's just, there is a striving to make sure like it connects in some way to this overall universe that has been created, when really I think you could have done something formidable, or even, dare I say, good, if you just limited it to the time period we're in. But I think that was one of the big flaws of the show.
I totally agree. And I think it's just a big again, it goes back to Lucasfilm. And like, yeah, it's like you have to connect it so you get more fans. You have to connect it, get more fan service so you get more views. get more subscribers on Disney Plus, more people, more eyeballs on it. That's why, like, oh, you got to include the Yoda cameo, the Dark Plagueis cameo. That word of mouth, people that maybe gave up on the show because it was so bad to some people, be like, oh, I got to go see Yoda because I'm a huge Star Wars fan, especially Yoda. It's just like, no, look at what your best property was. It was Andor. There weren't special cameos. It's just straight up quality. And I think the thing I hate about this, just the concept of this show, is that they could have done almost anything. Really. 100 years prior to Phantom Menace, you don't need to connect it 100 years later. You could literally do whatever you want. You have the Prime Jedi, the Rise of the Dark Side, and this is what you chose to do. And it's like you were choosing so many things, so many different storylines. If you just focused on a couple, like, I don't know, like Chimere, and like maybe if you did like one, like maybe only one of them, Osha or May, choose one person and show like, oh, they're a Padawan and show their rise, and then the other half of the show is showing Chimere rise, and then you could do some weird stuff at the end there. Maybe you just keep it simple like that. I don't know. That's just a suggestion. I'm not a writer. That might not have been the best, but that would have been a lot clearer, and that would have been more contained. And it would have felt earned at the end, probably. Here is like way too much stuff going on. And this memory wipe. Osha saying, oh, if you like let May go, I will be on the dark side, or I'll be trained. It's like, I didn't feel anything by the end of this. And then you're trying to tell me to get ready for a season 2 cliffhanger. I'm like, why would I want that? Just because you showed me a Yoda cameo? We could do a Yoda, like, we're going to get a Yoda like series or movie someday. So like, why do I need to see Yoda in season 2 of the Acolyte for 5 minutes where I know I'm going to get a Yoda prequel movie at some point. So it makes no sense to me. And I just hate the Lucasfilm idea with Kathleen Kennedy. And again, I'm going to say she's got to go.
Sims, I want to ask you something. What's more likely to happen? An Acolyte season 2 or a Yoda series? What's next in the docket?
Someday. Like, in the next 20 years, we're going to get something.
I asked Sims.
I mean, The Acolyte was a, $200 million show, and it almost assuredly is going to be the worst reviewed Star Wars show ever made. So I'm going to say a Yoda show. I don't think that's particularly likely either, but knowing Disney and how they love to milk the cow of nostalgia, like, I see that over making a second season of the show.
I think one of the hugest flaws ever since COVID, ever since the debut of Disney Plus, ever since and this goes with Marvel too, as soon as they started to make TV shows, they were granted the budgets of movies. And then the expectations are set sky high. It has to look perfect. And if it's not, it feels like a bust. If they made the show smaller, right? And if they just spent less money and it was more contained and you made it like TV's supposed to be, you're going to be more successful. They're making shows like they're just long movies, and they are meeting nothing but failure. So why don't you treat it like an actual TV show? Okay? Why don't you make it less connected to what the movies are? And why can't it be something that stands? It just feels like these have been an absolute failure so far, Ricky Flex. And I think Acolyte and Book of Boba Fett, like Book of Boba Fett, Johnny Sims, you said like worst reviewed. Book of Boba Fett's worse. I'll tell you what. That show sucked. Absolutely sucked, dude. Like if they made a movie about like Boba Fett, that was in discussions for so long, even prior to Disney Plus and like these series that have been coming out. That might have been successful if you put it in the right time frame to have that extended series. That was the bomb of all bombs, but I mean, this is rivaling it based on the reaction so far. Ricky Flex, you about to say something?
Yeah, but like I'll speak for myself. I've talked a lot about the bad writing and how there's different storylines, different themes they're trying to tackle, or they're just throwing it in there lackadaisically. Like if you kept it more concise or condensed, then yeah, you could tackle some of those. But it's also the promotion. It's not just the writer's room. It's the promotion. It's the executives here. This was a murder mystery that wasn't. We forget. Remember, first few episodes were like, what?
They tried to end it like it was a murder mystery. They tried to make it like, I don't know if you guys are feeling this vibe, The Dark Knight. They tried to make it like The Dark Knight, where it's like all the crimes are pinned on Batman at the end, except that like obviously Soul was not an actual good guy. The 4 Jedi murders, you put it on one person as a cover up, and then we all live happily ever after with the Jedi. Sorry, Ricky Flex. I had to mention that.
No, yeah, and it's like this is supposed to be a murder mystery. It has like the religion or political thriller, corruption, the sisters storyline, the dark side's thrown in there. Chimeras come up, a little love story, romance. Like, look at all those different things that they're trying to do in 8 episodes, and you waste 2 of them with flashbacks. So, and the flashbacks, one of them was the same thing, just from a different perspective. No new scenes. That's the same scene they shot, just from a different camera angle. So you save money basically on that too. So it's just, oh God, it's just so frustrating, you know? So it's not just the writers, it's also like the promotion, and just also like business side of it. And it's all like Lucasfilm, it's all clouded right now. It really is, from all different perspectives.
Sims, any thoughts there? That's a lot for you.
I wanted to backtrack to the Dark Knight comment of how all the murders were pinned on Soul. So we're shown Master Yoda at the end of the episode, right? How many Jedi did we see die throughout the series? 6 or 7, at least.
Just in episode 5.
When Order 66 is happening, Yoda has like a heart attack because you can feel Jedi being killed. You're meaning to tell me that there were about 10 Jedi on this planet with Vernestra that found Soul dead, and they all managed to hide it from Master Yoda, that this one guy did all these terrible things and did these terrible things 16 years ago when he killed all his partners? I just don't buy it. I don't buy it.
Yeah, and like it's like they're trying to persuade us, like, oh well, he didn't recognize in the prequel trilogy that the dark Palpatine was on the rise. Like, it's like, oh, he didn't recognize that. So this ain't the same. This ain't the same. And like Soul mentioned the council a bunch of times. Same with Carrie Ann Moss character and Dara mentioned the council, but like it's always only to Vernestra. Like, how does he not know what's going on until Vernestra covers it up and like doesn't bring it to the Jedi Council? They act in this show, they act like Vernestra is like the highest of the Jedi. It's like, no, the Jedi Council, like what do we like, why is she like, is she the president, of the Jedi? She ain't. Like, it made no sense how they structured the Jedi in this show. And again, for the prime Jedi, it doesn't make sense where Yoda's there and he's not involved when 10 Jedi died in one day.
I'm not a Vernestra guy. I'm not a Vernestra guy.
We didn't even mention another thing they just threw in here, who we were like, another storyline we've been waiting to hear, and they did it for 5 seconds. Vernestra is Chimera's former master. They just threw that in there with one look. It's like, it's you, and then it's over. It's like, what?
So I want to talk about both Vernestra and Chimera, because I think what they did with Chimera is a shame, because he was the best part of the show, in my opinion. And we really don't know more about his motivations aside from that he needs an acolyte and that he has some type of former relationship with Vernestra. But Vernestra, when that senator came to speak with her, I was like, the senator just dominated her. Just absolutely dominated her. Put her in a blender and mixed her all up. Strawberry banana smoothie. Absolutely put her for a tailspin. I thought she looked so weak in that part. And then to have her lie at the end and the bullshit where she just goes to any like scene of the crime and she knows exactly what happened, and her just lying through her teeth. After this, I was like, I don't want to see any more of Vernestra. I just don't. I don't want to see. I know she's green. Doesn't mean I want to see her with Yoda. I just don't want to see it. I was never a fan. Any thoughts on Vernestra, boys? Sims?
I thought she was, again, a poorly written character, and I thought not that she would have had much to work with, but I didn't particularly care for the actress either. I didn't think she did a good job in the role. I thought everything was the exact same tone, made the exact same face for everything. It was just, I agree. I don't want to see her again. I could do without her.
And there's something that they said earlier on in the season. I want to say it was the first half, or maybe it was the end of episode 5. I don't recall, where it's like May is just the first step in a master plan. We have no idea what that master plan is. Literally 5 episodes go by and we still have no freaking idea what that master plan was. And I want to connect that to Chimera. Chimera, what an injustice. Manny Jacinto is the best performer in this show and just doesn't get the warranted screen time that he deserves. And I think the treatment of the character was weird. Weird decisions made at the end. Osha is going to be his Padawan when really was that necessary for Osha to kind of quote unquote sacrifice herself so her sister can go free and kind of get like basically arrested and kidnapped by the Jedi. I thought it was really weird to have him standing with Osha at the end, holding her hand. And I'm just thinking, this is almost we get this, like episode 6 was very sexual, the seduction of the dark side, but like Osha, like this guy basically just wiped your sister and separated you from your sister. Like you're not holding this dude's freaking hand right now. To me, I just found that weird. Like you just turned to the dark side. You spent 2 days with this guy, and it feels like you want to take him to a wedding chapel in Vegas. I just thought it was very, very weirdly handled at the end of this episode.
That was weak.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. They really dropped the ball with Chimera in the last few episodes. Like after episode 5, we were riding high. Like he had the badass fight scenes. He was super ominous, had a cool appearance. And then the last few episodes, it's like they turned him into like a sappy lapdog that was just following Osha around, like, oh, please, won't you come train on the dark side with me? And then all of a sudden, he's like they're holding hands out of absolutely nowhere. What? Because she saw him naked once, and when he was taking a bath on a lake or whatever it was. It was just unbelievable leaps and shoddy writing all around. And I'm gonna say this: whoever the showrunner for this show was, not only should they never be allowed near a Star Wars project again, they should never produce a TV show or anything in cinema ever again. Ever.
Okay,
with a $200 million budget of an IP like Star Wars is unfathomable.
I thought I was harsh.
I do want to pull up the IMDb because this would actually be hilarious. So, oh my God, do you know what the ACOLYTE has on IMDb? Can you guess the rating?
6.8 out of 10.
It's going to be like an 8.2 or something.
3.7. Oh! I've never seen a show like that.
Dude, so look at Boba Fett.
I'm glad it was that bad.
I'm looking up Leslie Headland's IMDb, and she did Russian Doll, which I think is like a prestige TV series. Other than that, I'm seeing nothing. I see absolutely nothing. She was a co-producer of The Bachelorette back in 2012. Okay. Where else do we want to?
Boba Fett.
Okay.
You got a 3, like Boba Fett. If that is below a 3.
Okay. So you ready? Book of Boba Fett has this is IMDb, so it's kind of a mixed bag. 7.2 out of 10. That's insane.
The Luke Grogu episode, Mandalorian episode was good.
So IMDb's got to have a lot of fan influence. If like ACOLYTE's 3.7.
Diversity in the ACOLYTE, maybe.
I don't know. Okay, guys. Obviously, we weren't a huge fan of this season. We can talk about strengths and flaws later, but I kind of want to talk about the future of Star Wars because obviously, this is not a direction we look to be steering towards in the future. Okay. State of Star Wars. Johnny Sims, if you are Kathleen Kennedy or you are Bob Iger, CEO of Disney, what is your next move with Star Wars? Because we've had these series that have not really panned out. Andor's working. Mandalorian seems like it's fallen off. We have Mandalorian and Grogu movie coming out next year, I believe. Or that might be 2026. And
2026.
I want to know, what is the right path for Star Wars? What is in your estimation?
I think next they need to get, I don't know where it's at in production, but they need to get Andor season 2 drilled and get it out to cleanse the palate from this shit. Get the bad taste out of our mouths with actual good Star Wars television. I think that'd be a good next step. And then they really need to drill the landing with the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. I have high hopes for what it could be. And obviously we've been building towards this movie for years now. And then after that, I really want these contained stories like we're talking about, like that aren't tied into the last 50 years of Star Wars cinema. Give us just standalone things that can just exist on their own, that have coherent writing, coherent storytelling, and actual good acting, and I'll be satisfied.
Flex, what are your thoughts on Sims, and what's your plan?
Sounds great, Sims. I concur with all that. Well, if you go back to your question of what's the first action for Bob Iger, I think it's obvious if you're talking to me, asking me, it's fire Kathleen Kennedy. And then the second thing would be, yeah, like Sims, you're right. Andor season 2, the final season, will be next year. Awesome. But we have Skeleton Key coming out. So Skeleton Crew. I keep saying Skeleton Key. Sandra Bullock Denzel movie, 04, 05, whatever that was. Skeleton Crew, Jude Law. I have no hopes for that. I'm doing like a pass, absolute pass on that. Andor's got a hit. You are right about Mandalorian and Grogu. I think Filoni and Favreau will figure that out. They kind of have to, right? They kind of have to. So get that done. And I agree with all you said, Sims, but I'm going to make a statement. And I think I've said something similar. I think you abandon the Daisy Ridley movies that they're planning on doing.
Yeah.
You abandon it and you start fresh. Whether it's just not a trilogy, just contain just something that's quality. I'm not saying a Yoda, something that's fan service. I just mean something that just like has the tone and feel of Star Wars. It could be, I'm not saying it has to be something that we've seen like The Acolyte or a political thriller like Andor. It just has to have that feel and something that like gets the Star Wars juices flowing through the fans. We don't necessarily need fan service like Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm think we want. They think we want all these cameos. Andor didn't have any cameos. I said that before. I'll say it again. We just need something that's Star Wars, true and blue Star Wars, and that's just, I don't know. Like here, like I'll say something positive that I think Star Wars has figured out under Kathleen Kennedy. It's the Jedi lightsaber battles. It's the action sequences. The Rogue One crew that was also on this for the Acolyte, they figured it out. That's awesome. Because that was something I said before the season that they needed to absolutely nail for Prime Jedi was the lightsaber battles, and they did nail that. I will give the Acolyte credit, but going forward, you got to just get the story right. You got the lightsabers, but that's only like 10% of a movie or show. The 90% is what really matters to make it coherent. So, Doc, to answer your question, Kennedy gone, Andor's got a hit, Mandalorian Grogu got a hit, Daisy Ridley gone, and start fresh.
For me, I have a lot riding on the James Mangold, like early days of the Jedi and the Force, his 10 Commandments story about Star Wars. Good. I want an emphasis on movies. I honestly think, aside from Andor, shut everything else down. What the problem is with Lucasfilm in the Disney partnership is that Star Wars does not feel weighty or important anymore. It does not feel like it is that one thing that is pure. It feels like that it's coming out way too fast. It feels like The Mandalorian is the only thing that really hit the center of culture that they've done. You look at the other projects, they feel like they are unneeded or unnecessary. They have not hit a core audience that expands just from Star Wars fans. That was like, oh, season 1 and 2 Mandalorian hits for Star Wars fans, but then everybody else. Everything like Andor, it hit for Star Wars fans, but not a mainstream audience. Like you need something that's going to hit home for everyone. And this is Star Wars. This is the biggest thing in science fiction. So I think you scrap everything but Andor. You focus on movies. I don't think you make Daisy Ridley movie because, I mean, it's the sour taste of The Rise of Skywalker and the divisiveness of The Last Jedi. I think, honestly, if The Acolyte was a movie and you put enough resources into it like you did for TV and you had like a formidable director on it, that could have been something special rather than a TV series. Star Wars has to be movies. Star Wars is not about movies anymore. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest transition they got to make. It's really pissing me off. Any other thoughts here, boys? Until I did want to rank the shows. Any other thoughts?
No, I think this isn't the. I know we kind of alluded to it. I think Boba Fett's worse.
Okay, so let's just do this now. Okay, my last place for Star Wars series is definitely the Book of Boba Fett. As much as I am the 1 and the 2v1 here, the Acolyte is the second worst, right?
Agreed.
After that, I'm going to have to pull up my list right now. I'll tell you what I have. This is the toughest. The 3-4 is very tough. I'm not including Bad Batch. I'm doing live action Star Wars show. It becomes Ahsoka versus Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan has a lot of highlights to it, and I love the finale, but it was so unnecessary, and it felt like the last thing I wanted to see between Obi-Wan and Anakin was Episode 3. At times, I wish Obi-Wan never happened. In fact, I'll just say I do. I wish it never happened, despite the highs that it brought. So that's at 4. Then I have Ahsoka at 3, Mandalorian at 2, Andor at 1.
I have no qualms with that list. I was going to say, if we were including animated, I probably would have Rebels and Clone Wars at the tippity top.
Wow.
Even above Andor.
Yeah.
We're sticking to live action. We're sticking to live action. I probably have to go Clone Wars just because the last season was one of the best seasons of television I've ever even seen, even with it being an animated show. But Rebels was spectacular in its own right.
Wow. Ricky, you've seen both the animated shows, right?
Not in its entirety, no.
Okay.
So I don't feel comfortable putting those on the list. I have Obi-Wan ahead of Ahsoka.
You do?
I still do. I think time has helped as well with this take. I think Obi-Wan's highs are just so high. I know I'm not a Clone Wars Rebels guy as in its entirety, so it didn't hit sentimentally as much as maybe Johnny Sims over here. But for me, Obi-Wan did hit. And I think, yes, the lows, I don't think it was a rock bottom. And Doc, I don't think you're wrong. We didn't need it at all versus like Ahsoka. That's helping with the universe in the Mandalorian Grogu movie. But overall, like, still, like, Ahsoka's barely in that show. Like, I still am going to take Obi-Wan. I'm going to go rewatch Obi-Wan than Ahsoka. I'm going to go rewatch those lightsaber duels versus Ahsoka's. Like, no doubt. And yes, Ahsoka I don't think was bad. I think my expectations were just a little higher for that one. So it was kind of a letdown in that regard. But still, like, I still think it was fine. Obi-Wan, my expectations were sky high. They didn't come close to it. But those highs are just that highlight reel I can always go back to. Dude, and I can't go back to Ahsoka.
It's like a late Saturday night. I'm home from the bar. It's maybe 2:30 a.m. and I'm watching some scenes from the finale of Obi-Wan. I'm not disagreeing with you, but like the show as a whole, it just makes me shake my head. I'm like, I can't believe this happened and it wasn't on the big screen. Like, that is insane to me. We had the two biggest stars of the prequels and we relegated them to a TV show. That drives me insane.
I want to make a statement, but I'm going to refrain from going extreme. But I remember saying how, like, they should have done like the weekly Obi-Wan, like they should have done movie theaters for every episode because Darth Vader does not belong on the small screen. If they ever put Darth Vader again on the small screen, I'm not going to say I'm done with Star Wars, but I don't know what I would do. I need to come up with something serious.
I don't want to see a Darth Vader series. I don't even want to see a Yoda series. Like, these names are so iconic. They should not be relegated.
Like, imagine putting Jaws like on the small screen. Like, you need to put these characters or like these significant figures in cinema history on the big screen, and you're getting relegated. You're getting relegated to a laptop.
Sorry about that, Sims. Like, we're going all out with the movie theaters right now. What else do we have? Anything else? Any
I have an idea or a question.
Bring out the laundry list. Let's go.
All right, we just did the whole Disney Plus thing for LucasFilm. Or Star Wars, I should say. What's better, the Star Wars Disney Plus shows or the MCU Disney Plus shows?
Oh my God, it's like picking, like, I don't even know. That's like picking your favorite vegetable, dude.
So WandaVision, right? Loki, Falcon the Winter Soldier, She-Hulk, Hawkeye, Echo. I might be missing one, but that's 6 right there. We just said 6. I think you lean Star Wars, which is crazy to say after we just kind of like shot on them for like 45 minutes.
What's kind of fascinating is that you still build it kind of similarly when you have the MCU next to Star Wars. Like, you have like Loki at the top, and then you have Andor at the top, and then like Mandalorian with Lucasfilm. And I think the top 2 for Mandalorian kick everything else ass for Marvel. You know, like Marvel has Loki and they have nothing else. And I think even with the body of work, like the middle body of the MCU is stronger than Star Wars. So I'm going to take the MCU despite the stronger 2 picks at the top slots there for Star Wars.
Sims, I know you're the Star Wars guy, but have you seen all the MCU projects or no? Pass.
I have seen half of those, so I cannot comment on it, but I will trust your guys' opinions on it.
I think low key the MCU is more entertaining, like those shows compared to a Star Wars. And even if the MCU, like it has, if you're an MCU fan, it has the Easter egg potential, and it has like the implications for like the next major movie, or this character might be a blossoming star, maybe a next Avenger, maybe a member of the Young Avengers. Here in Star Wars, you're just like, I don't know when I'm going to see this character again, you know? So it just feels like they're long lost. So Ricky Fox, did you answer the question? Did you say which one you thought?
Yeah, I went with Star Wars. I'll take the top, like similar to my Obi-Wan Ahsoka take. Like it's kind of like, yeah, I'll take the high end talent. You know, I'll take the higher ceiling, I guess, with Star Wars versus the MCU.
Okay, well, I think that does it for our reactions and review for the season finale of The Acolyte. Who knows if we're getting a season 2? What I do know is that if there's another Star Wars project, maybe the Skeleton Crew, we know who we are calling on. We know whose shoulder we're tapping. That is the one and only Johnny Sims. Johnny Sims, thank you for joining us. We always appreciate your expertise.
Thank you for having me, boys. I'm always waiting in the wings when you need me.